Mr. Ebenezar Wikina, thank you for joining us. He is the founder of Policy Shapers, as well as the convener of the Rivers 2050 Vision. All right, a visionary plan for what our state can achieve or should be looking to achieve by 2050. Mr. Ebenezar, you can unmute and join us now. Is joining us all the way from Port Harcourt, or are you in one of those on one of those your international travels at the time, Mr. Ebenezar? Ebenezar, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Man. Yes, I'm in Port Harcourt
Okay.
right now. So thanks.
All right. What in
Yeah.
your opinion? And I know you've worked in. If we were to read your bio, it probably would be a very long one. You've worked across different spheres, internationally and globally. And also, you've spoken to quite a number of leaders. The other day, I saw you, commenting on the Norwegian king's, a video where he was welcoming his people back, and you were like, oh, you're not surprised because your conversation with him at some point could have given you a clue. And Norway, like Nigeria, is blessed, or the Niger Delta to be precise, is blessed with oil.
Yeah.
And they seem to have been one of the countries who have made the best use of their commonwealth. So, what are the things that you would say are the fabrics for envisioning a better country? Let's start from there.
Yeah. No. Thank you so much for this question, and I think that I like that. It was good to also hear from the audience people's thoughts on ideas on this, and I like that you also use Norway as an example. Yeah, Norway is a country just like us. The entire Norwegian population is somewhere around 6 to 7 million. So that's basically the population of River State, and the only difference, the only reason why they are where they are, and we are where we are currently as a state is because, so many years ago, some people sat down and said, this gift that we have, which is the resource, the oil resource, wouldn't last forever, right? How can we ensure that all of the profit and the benefits that we get from this trade, how can we ensure that the future generations, people like Erling Haaland now, who many years wasn't even born, right? How do we ensure that they can then benefit from this? What would be the best way to invest in the future of our country? And so they thought about establishing something called the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And currently Norway owns, first of all, they have the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. And currently they own what's the equivalent of 1% of every publicly traded company in the world. So that is trillions and trillions of dollars, right? We're talking about Elon Musk a couple of weeks ago. Norway is one country where even if there's no oil for the next 50 years, they will be able to survive because they've invested in so many other sectors. And all of that happened because people sat down and said, let us imagine the future. How can we sit down and design the kind of future that we want to see? And I like the comment. I think it was Achalugo who said, every adult should look at their past, look at their present, and use that to design their future, right? And for us as a state, there's so much that we can look back on. The last time our state that's River State, had any kind of long-term vision or plan was 50 years ago.
Wow.
It was 50 years ago. It was in 1975 when we had our first military governor, Commander Alfred J.S.S. Spieth, who, by the way, was in his 20s at that time.
It was 24. I think it was 24.
It was 24.
Yes, I once interviewed him, and we can talk about that later. Continue, please.
Yes. He was 24. And when people talk about, youth are not ready to lead, and it's not your turn, and those kind of things, you had the young governor in his 20s who imagined all of what we have now, whether you're thinking of things like Borough Park or even the Secretariat building, like Points Block, right? He imagined all of those kind of things, and it was a 5-year plan, right? And that was the last time that we had, as a state, officially had sat down and said, let us plan for what the future will look like. And so, just as you said, in course of my work, I worked with so many organizations where we've supported a couple of other states. For a good example is Abia State's plan. So the current plan that Governor Oti refreshed, I was part of the team who designed that plan. And we had advocated for River State as my state. I've personally taken it on myself to advocate for River State to actually come up with a long-term plan or vision. Haven't gotten as much interest from the public sector. Administration after administration, it does feel like people seem to care a lot more about the next election, the next 4 years, the next, how do I win the votes? Much more than how do I design the next 10, 15, 20 years. And, the points that Senator made about China, China, just like 30 years ago, China was a very poor country. Right? There was nothing about China that could give you the feeling that they could be a world or superpower right now. Right? This is as far back as the 90s and 80s. They were just a really poor country. But some people sat down again and said, how can we, with that huge population, first of all, how do we manage this huge population boom? And how can we ensure that we build industry and infrastructure to be able to support this huge population and design the future such that we become, a superpower. I could give you examples all around the world. Qatar, for example. Qatar is exactly the same size as River State. The Qatar that hosted the last World Cup, right?
Yeah.
They're 11,000 square kilometers. We are 11,000 square kilometers. Even worse for them, they're in the middle of the deserts. So you begin to even wonder, how do they even feed? They can't plant anything. There's no water in their ground, right? So they have to take water from the ocean and desalinate it for them to be able to use. We just drill the ground and there's water. You throw water, leave at your backyard, and it begins to grow. So how are they able to go from that point to exactly the same size? They even have less population, a fewer population than us. For them to be able to host the last World Cup, they needed to import people to come help them build their stadiums and build all of the things that they needed as part of the things to be able to host the World Cup, right? So if you have that, the same size, there's nothing, we're just the same. So if you've had all those kind of things and they've been able to grow themselves over the past, what now? So in 2008, they launched something called the Qatar National Vision. And they said, as part of the things, they said they will host a global sporting event that would bring the world to see what they have been able to build for 20 years. Again, they had a young prime minister, a young leader who took over from his dad and said he wants to design what the future should be. So, just saying all of this, I feel after many years of advocating for our states to do one, and we didn't see any interest from the public service or the public sector to do one, we thought it's our future, right? In the end, if you look at it, if you weigh the pros and cons, there's less motivation on the part of those who are in their 60s and 70s to help you design a vision for your future compared to you who is in your 20s and 30s. So they said, okay, maybe it hasn't been done in Nigeria's history before, but maybe it's a chance for us to say, since they wouldn't do it, maybe we should do it for ourselves. Maybe we should gather young people. And so Policy Shapers, the organization that you mentioned earlier, which is an organization I co-founded with a couple of other young people who care about the future of Nigeria generally and the South, said, let's get young people together. And we brought over 150 young people across all walks of life, across the 20 local government areas, and said, let's sit down and let's design what our state should look like. And so we came together last February, and that's what has led to this, this project and all we've been able to achieve so far.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you guys have designed, the hopes of the future is, now let us talk about who should be doing this in the real sense of things. You kept saying some people came together, in different countries. Let's look at this. I know that I have seen and partially read. I've not completed that book, My Vision, by the Abu Dhabi Prince
Bin Khalifa.
And that's one. If we talk about Singapore, who also has an amazing story, we will look at Lee Kuan Yew as a key name in that direction. Of course, Xi Jinping of China would also be a very central figure when you're looking at the resurgence of China, among others. Now, I know that you have interviewed a couple of them, including the King of Norway. But the question really is it one person who is supposed to just wake up and stand up and say, no, I see this, let's do this for our country? Or how exactly from your experience and looking at what your research, how as most countries who have developed a vision, achievable vision, or visions that have come to reality, who started it? How did they do it?
No, good point. That's a really good question, and I think that's part of the innovation of this project, right? We've noticed that quite a few of these countries that you mentioned, because another thing we've done is that as part of the project, we invited people from these various countries. So we had someone from Singapore, the person who established Singapore's Center for Strategic Futures. We got the person who was the world's first futures commissioner from Wales. We got someone from Qatar Foundation who works with the government to establish Qatar's education programs and design Qatar's national vision. And so we brought these people, right? In their case, they've been lucky to have leaders who have said, you know what, as part of my legacy, I want to be able to design something that will outlive and outlast me, right?
Okay.
And they've also had, for some of them, they've been lucky to have, for example, certain parties that have been in office for a long time that have been able to also follow through and drive with that vision. They've also had, again, successors, people who come after the other person and say, you know what, everybody has their selfish ambition, right? But for me, I will make sure that I build from where this last person stopped, right? I wouldn't come with a whole new thing and destroy everything else that's been built, and or just think only about what will give me votes and election votes and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
So in most cases, we have seen that it's been individual led, and even in Nigeria, if it comes to Nigeria as well, we've had, for quite a number of the states, we've had states where you've had a very visionary administration, and then they leave office in 4 years or 8 years, and someone else comes and just destroys everything that the other person has done, because they don't think that, because they assume that it's the other person's plan, not really the state's plan, right?
They don't adopt it as something that is for.
They don't adopt it. For them, it's a political message to say that this belongs to that person, So they come and feel like they have to do their own. So you begin to hear things like 7-point agenda, this point agenda. Each person has their own agenda or their own, message that they feel that is how they should be able to design things. So the challenge with that is you have quite a bit of haphazard governance, right? So each person is trying to do. So instead of just having continuity across various administrations, imagine each person. So we just think of this. Maybe you're trying to build a house, right? And someone does the foundation for 4 years. The next guy who comes maybe should build the next to the Intel level, right? But the next guy who comes does his own foundation for another 4 years. And then another guy comes in 4 years and does another foundation for another 4 years. So instead of having a house built, you have 3 different foundations and no house. So we have been in that cycle for quite a long time. And I feel, so the innovation of this project is that we're saying this is a citizen-led thing. There's no political backing. Obviously, we're going to engage political parties. We're going to engage leaders. And we've been doing that all through the project. But it is not their vision. It doesn't belong to the governor. It doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to the people. And so everything about what the people feel as their needs are and what they feel the future should look like is what has made up the backbone of this particular vision. So to answer your question, I think that it should be the people. It should be led by the citizens. And I think that's when you get a hope of a long-term vision that would outlive and stand the test of time, much more than one that is being led by a particular political leader. We're not lucky like Qatar and Co. that have they call them benevolent autocracies, where you have one person stay for a long time, right? And if you're there for a long time, maybe you have the power to then implement a vision. If they're lucky and you're visionary, you can then implement a vision for a long time. But again, we've seen that there are examples like Zimbabwe and Co., where you had leaders that stayed for a long time as well who have not done anything. So when we often discuss long-term vision, and people often say, oh, you need to have someone who stays for a long time. You can't really work in a democracy. But we've had people in Africa who have stayed for, look at Cameroon. He's now in his 90s. But can you really say he's been visionary? No, it doesn't really matter how long you stay.
Wow.
It's how well you can actually put together a vision for your region.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of putting together a vision, because now you've said it's the people that should be leading the envisioning process for a. But the question now is, how do we organize ourselves? How do we? And because you know that in Nigeria, for example, let's take River State as a focal point. All right. Just yesterday, I saw a very disturbing video of a certain young man, of Bonny extraction, already, saying this land boundary, the tone of the conversation was already suspicious. Some people are already encroaching to our land. Oh yeah, make we come out. When you look at that, and then you look at even in a local government, communities in between a local government are at loggerheads. Do you understand?
Yeah.
In Rivers, there is almost no single local government. Only very few local governments have the same language across all the communities.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
Do you understand?
Good point.
So the question is, how do we harmonize ourselves to envision with this much division, so to say?
No. Very, very good question. And this is the question that confronted us when we began the project last year. And so we designed the project across 5 phases, right? Because we knew that you couldn't just start. We didn't want this to be a thing where a few people sat down somewhere and wrote something, which is often what happens, right? Wrote something and said, this is the River State Vision. Is it really the River State Vision if it's just a few people? So we designed this across 5 phases. The first phase was putting the task force together, which is the young people I spoke about earlier, over 150 of us across the 20 local government areas, some people even from other states in Nigeria as well, young people, coordinating ourselves on WhatsApp, right? Having our meetings on Zoom and just discussing how we want to design this project for the next, 18 or 19 months. So that was the first phase. The second phase was we said, okay, now we've come together, now we know what we want to do. How do we then get citizens to feedback into this?
Good.
Right? How do we ensure that we're having a lot of citizens, random everyday people, feedback into this vision? And so we launched something called the statewide survey, which will be closing soon, actually. So people who are listening and who would like to take part in this, visit rivers2050.org/survey, and you'll find this. So it's open for anyone from.
We'll put that out there a bit more towards the end of the show,
yes,
but continue,
yes,
please.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes. So we launched the survey and we said, okay, tell us first of all what your needs are, your current needs, because first of all we found that River State hasn't had any kind of needs assessment in a long time. What happens is that political office holders imagine and try to guess what they think the problems are. For example, a particular local government might need a school, but someone else imagine and say, I think you need a hospital, and endorse a hospital project there.
Or rather, they want to be known for hospitals, and they just
someone
do
who
that.
has done a hospital project. Exactly. So we said, okay, so let's find what the needs truly are from the people who are living in those respective areas. So we launched the survey. We first started online, and we noticed that we're not getting as much responses because, first of all, not everyone is online, right? So it's tough to be able to get as much feedback as possible. So we then incorporated volunteers who then went across all 20 local government areas, and we've now hit close to 5,000 Rivers people who we've spoken to one-on-one, right? To say, what are your thoughts? What do you want the future to look like? What ideas do you have for the states on how we can fix food security and education and stuff like that? And we actually did get a lot of feedback from people in Bonny as well. We had volunteers go across neighborhoods in Bonny, and we had 293 people who.
I'm aware that our CPS is a part of the Chief Press Secretary to Bonny Local Government. Is a part of your steering committee.
He's actually on the steering committee. Yes, he's on the steering committee of this project. And so that was how we said, okay, let's get people's feedback. So that was the next step for us. Then the third step was we said the everyday man might not have the nitty-gritty ideas of how to fix each sector, right? Yeah, we have broad ideas. I know what's troubles me. For example, I know I need lights, but how do you fix the power situation directly, right? I might not know. So we got the broad ideas and we said, okay, let's narrow down and go to the actual thematic areas. And so we identified 15 areas where River State can actually grow, and this cut across things like entertainment, media, sports, food security, tourism, blue economy. We found all these areas and they're all on the website. And we said, okay, so let's now find experts in these 15 areas to hold something that we call focus group conversations, where we'll bring the experts together during the weekend. The meetings were open for anyone to attend, and people will come in and they ask questions as, okay, in energy, for example, we noticed that Abia State has their own energy source now. Lagos State has their own independent energy source. How can River State do the same thing? And so people came and brought ideas on how we can work around these things. And we did the same thing for every sector. We've done now for 16 sectors. And the 17th one will be coming up actually this Saturday. So people who would like to join, we're discussing agriculture and food security. We're bringing together various agriculture experts, farmers, people in aquaculture who have fish farms, people who also work at the national level on policy around food security to see how the state can actually, because we have such a vast land that we should be feeding not just ourselves, we should be feeding the rest of this south of Nigeria, right? You would interest you that in River State we import fish.
In
That's why being
no,
called.
say,
That's
say,
why being
say,
called
say that
River
again.
State.
Say that again and shock me, please.
In River State, we import fish. Some of the fish that we eat in the states comes from
It's
other
true. It's
states.
true.
Yes, yes, yes. We import bananas, by the way. When we have a soil that can grow some of the best bananas that exist,
There is
and we
almost
saw
no
this at some
land you
point.
buy in most parts of
Yeah,
rivers that
yeah.
doesn't come with a banana stock on it.
It comes with banana, it comes with palm. You are the one that has to even cut it down because
Yeah,
it's already growing
yes,
and encroaching in
yes,
your space,
yes,
right?
yes, which is the
So,
truth.
so, so despite having all of this, food stuff shouldn't be, if it should be expensive anywhere in the country, it shouldn't be expensive where it can grow easily, right? And so, what are the solutions that government and private sector can come together to do design for the state? So we've done this for all of them, and this is the third phase, right? We're wrapping this phase up. And as part of this phase, that's where we also brought the experts from other countries as well to say, like, please come on. Just as a senator said, he said, please come and help us. We might not be able to fly you down. We can't afford to fly you down to our states or bring 5,000 of you to come and live here. But we can actually hear your thoughts and insights. And many of them who have heard about the project have said, oh my God, this is quite innovative. We should do this in our own country. And these are people who we think are also way ahead of us, and already have visions and stuff. They've been really excited about what we're doing. And they've been happy to come pro bono to come share their ideas, share documents with us. So this is how we've been able to do it. We think you can do it this way. And they looking from outside are saying, we think River State can be like a major like center for the future in Africa. They're not even saying Nigeria. Many of them who come, we don't tell them anything. They come and they say, we think you can be something in Africa. So they're even seeing us from a
A
global and
global
continental
perspective, yes.
perspective, much more than we're even seeing ourselves. And so that's what the third phase has been. And so we're now moving on to the fourth phase, where we're now bringing all these insights together to form the vision book, where we're going to work with experts to say, okay, had the data from over 5,000 people, the insights from the thematic experts and the discussions we've had, how do we bring all of them together to form this vision book? How do we proofread the vision book, ensure that experts also give feedback on how we've designed it? And then by November this year, the plan is to now launch the vision. Inviting as many as possible. Of course, we can't invite the whole of River State. We're inviting as many as possible, making it open
To the
for
physical
the people of the
event, but
state.
of course, amplify it in the
A
future.
physical event, yes. A physical
Okay.
event with virtual attendance, so people can also take part virtually from anywhere in the world. And want people to be able to come and say, okay, this is our vision for the next 25 years, and how do we ensure that even with the forthcoming elections, how do we ensure political parties begin to align their manifestos to this vision? Because this is what the people want. As a candidate, you're not going to, we've done all the work for you already. You don't have to go do anything anywhere. You just have the vision, and how do you ensure that your ideas and thoughts speak to how you make that vision come to pass for your own ward, local governments, and districts and stuff like that. So that's how we've made sure that we've had citizens kind of like feedback into the vision process.
Well, quite an extensive work that you have done thus far. So let's talk about the challenges and the discouragements
Yeah.
that comes with lack of support. No,
Yeah,
because it is.
there's a lot.
First of all,
Yeah.
this is a purely non-profit work that you and the team are doing. A lot of the people who are helping, and I know that because it is non-profit, no means say they cost something. The data one they take do, the time where you take do. I know how busy you get. In this process, I know you've still also been trying out with some certifications, some fellowships, and your regular job and all of that. So talk to me about the challenges in terms of the kind of support you would have envisaged or appreciated from the public sector, from the public officers, from the politicians, so to say, and the lack of it and what makes it challenging. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is that we've had a higher reception from people, from leaders internationally willing to come and engage on this vision than we've had from our own local leaders. Like, we would love to. We've written to a lot of local government chair. We wrote to Algon. We've written to the state governments over and over again. We've had maybe just a few commissioners who willingly have been able to come on. And also, just to remember that this also happened when last year when we had the state of
Emergency rule.
emergency. So there was so
Yes.
much going, yes, there's so much political turmoil going on. And we've seen that a lot of people locally seem to want to engage with the political process much more than the governance process, right? And I'm like, people mix things up because
So,
politics is important, but governance is also very
I'm
important,
I'm
right?
going
Because
I'm going to pause you for a bit and
yeah,
deviate a
yeah,
little bit so that
yeah,
we
yes,
talk
please.
about the difference between the political
Yes,
process and the governance
yeah.
process. You could just enlighten us a little bit about that.
Yeah, yes, please. So the way I see it is like think of government as a house, right? And politics is like the door that takes you into the house,
Okay.
right? So the politicking, the getting of votes, the is very important. Trust me. Like, and there are people who are really good at politics. But not everyone good at politics is good at governance. Because governance is when you get into the house, what do you do for 4 years? How do you actually solve problems? Because much more than people singing your name and dancing on the streets and sharing money and all those things, the realities will then face you for those 4 years. Like people are hungry, there's need for solving problems in the various communities and the social issues that people are facing. At that point, you then need to be much more than just being public. You need to be able to come up with strategies and policies and thoughts and ideas and programs that will then respond to the needs that people have. But what we've seen in our state is that we are so happy about the politics of it, right? Which is
We
fair,
like all the
right? We're happy
all
about
the
politics.
pam pam
But then
pam
the
pam pam,
government,
all the song
all
and
the
the
singing and live band, and we're always trending on Twitter for one live band, one new live band song or something like that. Which I mean, is cool. I mean, trend, right? Cool. But much more than that, can we also trend for the positive things? Can we also trend for solving people's problems, for being the state that is leading
we
in
trended with
tackling poverty?
12 we trended with 12 flyovers, some of which
We did.
Edo State people
We
will
did.
come and use as a tourist attraction, especially that one in
We did. We
mile
did. We
Ikoku
did. We
site.
tend to, and the funny thing was that our state actually used to trend a lot with governance too. There was a time when we were actually the first sub-Saharan African city. That's Port Harcourt was the first sub-Saharan African city to be UNESCO World Book Capital.
Yes, I remember
Since we have
that.
the World Book Capital in 20, you remember, right? You
Yes,
should
I
remember
do. I
that. Yeah,
remember
when
that very much.
we had folks from UNESCO and everything come down, and they were marveled at the kind of like primary schools that we built at the time in various local government areas. We used to be very cool, right? We used to be very cool. We used to set the pace. We used to have folks from Lagos and Kaduna and co. And I remember this personally because I was working then at that time. And you have people from Kaduna and co come down to come and say, "Wow, like how did you guys do this? Tell us how." You're a very rich state to be able to afford to do all of this. And so with all those resources that we had, at some point we just lost interest in governance, and I think that's been the biggest challenge that we've had as a state. And hopefully this vision helps to bring us back to that light to say, like, much more than who becomes the governor, we focus a lot on who becomes governor, who becomes local government chairman, who. Let's go to the what now. What would they do? Much more than asking who. I mean, we should decide the who, but we should also
But
decide the what.
okay.
What would they do? How would they make our problems
So so
solved? How would they solve our problems and make our lives better?
so Ebenezer, back to the initial conversation
Yeah,
before we took this detour. What are
yeah,
the
yeah.
key
Challenges. Yeah,
challenges that you have experienced,
yeah,
pushbacks to be
yeah.
precise?
Yes, yes, yes. No, no. I mean, so like I said, we've not had as much like a commensurate level of engagement, despite all the letters and like engagements we've had. Some people we've written like multiple letters, submitted letters multiple times, say, "Okay, please come on. Let's also hear your voice on how we can add your thoughts to this vision." We've not had that commensurate engagement, and like I said, I think it's because we sort of like put politics on the pedestal and don't think governance is important. The second is that we haven't knowing how, just like you said, knowing how expensive this is, we've deliberately not gone to government to say give us money to do this project, because it's very easy to do that, and then somebody says that you should put their face on the on the hardcover of this vision because it's their personal project, right? So we've also been there's a term in business called bootstrapping, which is like just like using the best of our resources, finding the most cost-effective way to do stuff, right? So even for the thematic conversations, we've used something like Zoom, right, to host them, where we can have people can join from anywhere in the world.
So that you
We
don't
don't have
have
to
to
fly
pay for, yes,
anywhere,
the
put
logistics
them
and the
in
rest of it.
hotel and everything. Yeah, yeah. So we found like what's the most cost-effective way to manage this kind of project, so that we're also not over doing much more than we can chew or biting more than we can chew, but also being able to still deliver this at the highest level. And so that's been tough. Even though we have 150 young people, we would have loved to see more young people in River State excited by something like this, right? That has been a challenge. We haven't had as much excitement as we would love to see. We have actually gone to part of our engagement. We've gone
Most
to
of them are wearing
universities.
senator and political cap.
Yes, they want to be
Senator,
SA,
senator
and
and political
that's what
cap.
excites them. Yes, they want senator and palms and cap, and so you want to be SA and all that. Nothing wrong with ambition, right? But like I said, we like the position
Ambition
and
without
the
vision. Where does it
without
leave us?
vision. Yeah, ambition, empty ambition doesn't really take us anywhere, right? So we've not seen as much excitement. Actually, one of the things that we did that I really liked was that we actually got your student union leaders from across all the tertiary institutions in the states.
Okay.
There was an event called the Gathering in University of Port Harcourt last year, where we said everyone, from faculty presidents, all of them, they came together and we said, let us talk about the future of our states. They will soon come to you and say, election is coming. They will say, give us boys and give us all of these things to disrupt the state, right?
Yeah.
You can either do that, or you can sit down and say, how can we design the future we want to see? How can we actually play a role for our own children? Because for them, their kids are abroad, right? So they don't really have a skin in the game. So for you, who would be here, who would live here, how can you make sure that your state is befitting for you and for your own kids? And
So
we have brought them together and we have tried our best. But again, like I said, we would love to see more young people carrying out this, because again, we are the major stakeholder in this
all
particular
right,
conversation.
Ebenezer, I would like to. We need to round up gradually. I would like to ask one more question before we talk about and give the people how more people can be part of building this vision. Contributing their own quota, their ideas. And I must tell you, people who are listening to us, first of all, we're a statewide radio, and people who are listening to us across the state are quite engaging. You're from Kana, isn't it? You're from Algo Kana.
I'm from Kana.
Okay,
Kana.
yeah. Okay. So if I say Deira, I'm in a good place.
You're safe. You're
Good.
safe.
All right. So I wanted to say that so that your people and everyone listening knows that you're deep rooted in the state and not just another half caste Riverian, so to say. But this is my question.
I've lived there all my life, actually, just to say. I mean, sometimes when we go to speak, people say, oh, did you come from abroad and everything? I've studied in some of the best institutions in the world online. There's some I've had to go physically for, right? But I've lived there. I was born in River State. I've lived in River State. This is me. I am a child of River State. So continue to live here with my family. Yeah.
So let's talk about, one thing is to build this vision and do it successfully. What is the post envisioning, which will now be the implementation stage? What are your plans for engagement towards implementation and adoption, so to say?
Yes. So there are two plans currently ongoing, and we've begun engagements on this since last year. So the way we see it, so when you design a vision, you then need a plan to bring that vision to pass. Imagine a state vision as a vision board, right? When we do vision boards in the beginning of the year, we put pictures of things that we want to see. We want to be this, we want to be that, we want to be this, we want to be that. But then a plan would then bring that vision to life. And that's okay, how do I become this? What do we need to do? Where am I currently? How much resources do we need? Where do we get the resources from? Who do we need to work with? And those kind of things. So those nitty-gritty questions, we think, is the next step. And we'll be engaging the executives to come up with something called River State Development Strategies. So there'll be 5-year development strategies where for every administration, they would have a 4 to 5 year plan that fits into the vision. To say it's not just a random thing you're just thinking about, but there's a step by step that we can take to actualize this. And then that 5-year plan or development strategy would then link to our budgets. Because I think what we do currently is that our budget just come out of thin air. We just imagine, whenever I see our state budget, I'm always wondering, why are we budgeting this for this? What's informed it? And it's not just River State, across Nigeria as well. You just see a lot of budgeting that happens randomly without any bearing. So our annual budget should fit into the development strategies. And then we're also going to be engaging post-election next year, the House of Assembly, to ensure that there's legislative backing for this long-term vision. right? There'll be something called the Rivers State Future Generations Bill that we hope we'll be able to get a member of the House to help us sponsor so that if it gets signed and becomes act, the state actually is held by law to actually plan for the future, such that
A
a random
legislation.
citizen can take legislation, yes, a random citizen who feels that a particular governor or member of House of Assembly or whatever, a public leader, is not doing something in line with this vision, a citizen can take that person to court and say you because there's legislation that backs it, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
it compels all of us as citizens and as public leaders to ensure that we actually bring the vision to life. So we know that this is just the start. It's not it's not the end.
Obviously.
When we launch the vision, is the beginning of the relay race, and
Well,
we hope that the executive, the civil service, and the House of Assembly can actually work with us to see how to bring institutional backing to make this a reality.
Thank you so much, Ebenezar Wikina. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
insightful conversations this morning. It's
Thank
more
you. Thank you
about
for having
letting
me.
our people learn. Although mostly on this show, we let our people contribute, but it was good that we were able to take a few contributions before we started. So, for people who want to participate in the survey, in the needs assessment survey that is still ongoing, how do they participate?
Yes, please. So we have a project web. So we are available first of all across all social media platforms. So you can actually come and see all the things that we're doing at our Rivers 2050 across all platforms.
Okay.
Or you just search Rivers 2050 Vision. You would see us on all the platforms.
All right, that's
Now, for you
one.
to take part in the needs assessment survey, we have a project website called rivers2050.org or .org. And if you actually go to that website, I mean, first of all, you see all the options there. There's survey, there's a list of all the engagements we've had. So if you want to go read and even watch, because we recorded all of them for the future, if you want to go watch all the things we've discussed on sports, all the experts we brought, all the things we discussed on media and entertainment, on culture and tourism, etc., you can go watch all of these things on our website. But if you want to just take the survey itself directly, go to rivers2050.org/survey and you'll be able to put in your ideas and thoughts. I mean, we don't ask anyone for their name because we want this to be anonymous so people don't feel like anyone will come and hold them responsible in the future.
All
But
right.
we'll ask you for your location, where you are, your local government, and the various needs you've identified and how you think the states can also be better.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ebenezar Wikina, co-founder for Policy Shapers and the convener for Rivers 2050 Vision. We are out of time, and that will be the size of our show today. I hope that you, as a listener, you've learned something. You've also known that your thoughts can be heard. Go to that website, and as has been said, the link, and of course, take part in that survey, and the rest will be, you contributing to the future. I am the Mystery Man, and this has been an insightful and amazing conversation. I'll see you tomorrow for something else that is important to you and I on this radio. Good morning.